Plethora of Pierogies. In the town of Splatterby-on-Sniff there lived a girl called Primrose Pronk. Primrose was thin, in the way that makes certain grown-ups very pleased with themselves and other grown-ups terribly busy. She had elbows like coat hooks, knees like knobs, and a face as pale and pinched as a dumpling that has heard bad news. Now you might think a girl like Primrose would hate food. She did not. She loved food with a strange, trembling, furious devotion. She read recipe books in bed. She sniffed bakeries like a bloodhound. She collected sweet wrappers from the pavement and studied them mournfully. She could stand outside a butcher's shop for 20 minutes, staring at a string of sausages as though it were a cathedral. But when actual food was placed in front of her, Primrose turned queer. One boiled potato made her clutch her throat. A slice of bread brought on a great performance of eyelid fluttering and wrist drooping. A spoonful of soup was treated like a bucket of roof tar. "Oh no," she would whisper, peering into the bowl. "Good heavens, it's absolutely enormous." Enormous. This from a girl addressing 3 peas and half a carrot coin. Her mother, Mrs. Pronk, was one of those women who believed that any problem in life could be solved by saying the word sensible in a frosty voice. She was tall and dry and grey and folded like an umbrella that disapproved of weather. Her mouth looked as if someone had drawn a little crack in a wall. Her father, Mr. Pronk, was a dentist with a polished pink scalp and a laugh like a drain unclogging. Between them they had tried everything: tiny plates, blue plates, motivational plates, reward charts, threats, pleading, bribery. One ghastly month with a dietary expert called Dr. Flinch, a man with fishy eyes and a moustache like a dead squirrel, who tapped charts with a silver pointer and said things like, "We must normalize intake," which is the sort of thing experts say when they mean, "I have no earthly idea." None of it worked. Primrose remained Primrose. She longed, she sniffed, she studied, she refused. Then one Tuesday in November, the school announced International Dumpling Appreciation Week. This was the idea of Headmistress Crubb. Headmistress Crubb was built on the same principles as a wardrobe. She was vast, varnished and square at the corners. Her bosom arrived in a room half a second before the rest of her. She wore brooches the size of frying pans and had a neck that seemed to have been mislaid in infancy. Her cheeks were always crimson, either from shouting or from the private consumption of suet puddings. Nobody knew which. Headmistress Crubb adored food education. This was because it gave her the chance to stand on platforms and say oily things about balance while eating samples meant for children. She clapped her sausagey hands and announced, "Every pupil in Standards 4, 5 and 6 will prepare a traditional dumpling from a culture not their own. At the end of the week, we shall have a grand tasting assembly." There was a communal groan. Assemblies at Crumblepit School were already bad enough. A grand tasting assembly under Headmistress Crubb sounded positively lethal. Primrose's class teacher, Miss Paddle, came bustling in with the assignment sheets. Miss Paddle was a bony, bird-like woman with spectacles on a chain and the brisk, snapping movements of a stork hunting frogs. "You, Primrose," said Miss Paddle, peering down the list, "have been assigned Perogies." The word itself seemed to float in the air like steam. Perogies. Plump little parcels, soft little pillows, fat little pockets of potato and cheese and onion and butter. Primrose nearly swallowed her tongue. "Oh," she said faintly. That afternoon she went to the library and looked them up. The pictures were unbearable. Each one was more glossy, more swollen, more golden, more wickedly desirable than the last. She traced them with one finger. She read the ingredients. She could almost taste the butter, the dough, the pepper, the onion, the creamy mash inside. She felt dizzy. At home she announced, "I need to make Perogies." Mrs. Pronk gave her the sharp little nod she usually reserved for signs of moral reform. "How educational," she said. Mr. Pronk laughed his drain laugh. "Excellent. We'll see if she can manage to eat one without fainting dead away." This was one of those things fathers say because they think fathers are meant to say them. Primrose did not answer. She was picturing a hill of Perogies, a gleaming, buttery, onion-freckled hill. On Thursday evening they began. The kitchen filled with flour, dust and steam. Dough was rolled, cut, pinched, crimped. Potatoes were mashed with cheese. Butter hissed in the pan. Onions browned and collapsed into fragrant gold ribbons. Even Primrose's mother, who distrusted joy, had to admit the smell was astonishing. "It's rather rich," she said, which was her way of admitting something was marvellous. Primrose worked with a concentration that startled everyone. She pressed each little half-moon shut with her fingertips as tenderly as if tucking infants into bed. Soon the tray was crowded with them. 10, 20, 30, 42. A fleet of pale dumplings waiting for immersion. When they were boiled and tossed with butter and onions, the whole kitchen turned glorious. The windows fogged, the air grew thick and savoury, the pierogies shone. Mr. Pronk picked one up, blew on it, and swallowed it in 2 bites. "Ho!" he barked. "These are superb." Mrs. Pronk ate half of one and had the look of a woman being seduced by a carpet salesman. Primrose stood quite still. A full platter of pierogies sat before her. They were perfect. She wanted all of them. She wanted none of them. That, you see, was the muddle with Primrose. Hunger grabbed her by the nose. Fear grabbed her by the throat. Between the two of them, she was yanked about like washing on a line. "Go on," said Mr. Pronk. "You made them." Primrose cut one in half, then into quarters, then into eighths, then into scraps so tiny you could have posted them in a matchbox. Mrs. Pronk's mouth became a thinner crack than usual. "For goodness sake." Primrose lifted one bit to her mouth. She nibbled. She closed her eyes. For a moment her face changed. The pleasure that came over it was almost indecent. The soft dough, the peppery potato, the hot onion butter, the little sigh of cheese, it was all there at once. Richness, salt, comfort, warmth. She wanted another bite at once. She put the fork down. "No," she whispered. Her father rolled his eyes toward the ceiling, where many fathers seem to believe answers are stored. Her mother said, "Don't start this nonsense." Start this nonsense. A charming phrase, that. Grown-ups love phrases like that. They say them when they mean you're venient to me. Primrose sat frozen. Then Headmistress Crubb's assembly arrived. The school hall had been decorated with paper flags and educational slogans. Long tables groaned beneath dumplings of every kind. Gyoza, momo, pelmeni, samosas, which were not dumplings at all, but no one at Crumblepit School had ever let accuracy spoil a display. And at the centre, on a raised table draped in embroidered cloth, stood Primrose's contribution. A vast silver platter, a mound, a monument, a positively indecent abundance. Plethora of Pierogies, read the card Miss Paddle had written in curly blue ink. Headmistress Crubb saw it and gave a booming laugh. "Plethora, lovely word, means too much of a good thing." Her little piggy eyes slid toward Primrose. Several children sniggered. Now, children can be extremely cruel. Adults like to say children are innocent. This is because adults enjoy saying wrong things in calm voices. Children notice weakness, embarrassment, difference, hypocrisy, vanity, greed, and fear with the speed and precision of jungle cats. The better ones merely notice. The worse ones pounce. In Class 5B there was a girl called Millicent Mould. Millicent had ringlets like stale sausage peelings and a face like a smacked blancmange. She was one of those plump, rosy little horrors who are always clean in the wrong way. She had a wet pink mouth and a laugh that came out in spurts as if squeezed from a bottle. She pointed at the platter and sang, "Primrose made food she'll never eat." That won the first round. Several children cackled. Headmistress Crubb ought to have stopped it. She did not. She gave the sort of smile certain adults give when a child is being humiliated in a way they personally find educational. Then Crubb waddled to the platform, thumped the microphone, and began a speech. "Nutrition," she declared, "is a matter of good habits, decent obedience, and not making a ghastly fuss." At ghastly fuss she looked directly at Primrose. A few teachers smiled. Miss Paddle folded her arms. Millicent Mould smirked so hard her nose nearly disappeared into her cheeks. Primrose stood beside the Perogies in a hot little bubble of shame. She could smell them. Butter, onion, dough, pepper. She could feel the eyes. She could hear the tiny rustle of children waiting for something nasty to happen to somebody. Headmistress Crubb raised a meaty finger. "To show proper spirit," she boomed, "Primrose Pronk shall step forward and eat one of her pierogies before the whole school." A murmur rippled across the hall. Primrose went white. This was the sort of idea only a headmistress could call kind. "Come along," said Crubb. "No dramatics." Primrose looked at the platter, at the headmistress, at the rows of children, at Millicent Mould vibrating with joy. Then something in her, which had been pinched and bossed and prodded for months, gave a little twist. Not a break. A twist. A click. She stepped to the platter. She picked up the largest pierogi. It was hot and slick with butter. Onion strands clung to it like hair. The whole hall leaned in. Primrose raised it slowly. Then, with perfect aim and extraordinary force, she hurled it straight at Headmistress Crub. Splut. It hit her squarely in the brooch. Butter burst. Onions flew. The pierogi slid down the front of her dress, leaving a glossy trail. There was a silence so delicious you could have buttered it. Then somebody in the back gave a choking squeak. Then another. Then the hall exploded. Children shrieked with laughter. Real laughter. The dangerous kind. Desk drumming, foot stamping, knee-slapping laughter, the sort that spreads like fire in dry grass. Headmistress Crub stood frozen, cross-eyed with fury, while a strip of onion dangled from her brooch. "You!" she thundered. But Primrose had already grabbed another pierogi, and another, and another. Plop! Splut! Whap! They struck the podium, the microphone, the headmistress's shoulder, Miss Paddle's sleeve, Millicent Mould's stupid ringlets. Now other children joined in, because once the first brave wicked thing has been done, crowds become very inventive. Momo flew. Gyoza sailed. One particularly muscular suet dumpling struck Dr. Flinch, the dietary expert, directly on his squirrel moustache and remained there for a moment, trembling. Teachers shouted. Children screamed with delight. Millicent Mould took a potato dumpling in the ear and sat down abruptly in a tray of cabbage parcels. Headmistress Crub tried to restore order, but a pierogi landed in her open mouth. That, I think, was the finest touch. In the chaos, Primrose did an astonishing thing. She picked one hot pierogi from the platter, not to throw, to eat. She took a bite. Then a second. Standing there in the riot while dumplings flew and the headmistress bellowed and Millicent wept cabbage tears, Primrose ate the whole thing. It was glorious. The world did not end. The roof stayed on. No expert blew a whistle. No chart appeared. She ate another. This one she ate more slowly. She could hear the mayhem around her, but it had ceased to matter. Her hands were greasy. Her mouth was buttery. Her nose was full of onion and dough and pepper. She felt hot, alive, wicked, and wonderfully ordinary. By the time order was restored, Primrose had eaten 3. This was not, you understand, a cure. Life is very annoying that way. One splendid act of rebellion does not turn a frightened girl into a hearty gobbler of puddings and pies. There were bad days later. There were difficult meals. There were battles. But something had changed. The fear had been laughed at. The experts had been splattered. The grand, pompous machine of grown-up management had taken a dumpling in the face. And for a child, that can be a nourishing thing. Headmistress Crub banned International Dumpling Appreciation Week forever. Dr. Flinch wrote a report about food-based dysregulation events. Miss Paddle found an onion in her handbag 3 days later. Millicent Mould was called Pierogi Head for the rest of the term. As for Primrose, she gained a small secret reputation. Children nodded to her in corridors. Younger ones stared. A boy from Standard 4 whispered, "Are you the one who got Crub with the big buttery one?" Primrose said she was. At home she still had to endure her father's jokes and her mother's chilly little observations. But now, from time to time, she made pierogies for herself. Not a timid pair, not a dainty trio, a proper plateful, a splendid heap, a soft, golden, oniony, peppery, buttery plethora. And when she ate them, she did so with the grave concentration of a person accepting something she had been wrongly denied, which, between ourselves, is one of the finest ways to eat anything at all.